Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Boozer here. Thanks for stopping by. Today's video, I want to go over some popular champions that get used pretty often nowadays, just in this game in general, more of a end game, late game option. But I want to provide you guys with budget substitutes for these more end game options. So once you see, or when you see like people using them in videos and so forth, and you can kind of tell that their accounts are way more progressed than your own account, I want to give you guys a little bit of, some alternatives to those champions. I will preface that they obviously cannot replace the super high quality ones, but it's a start. And depending on where your account is, this is probably all you're going to need to get started. So let's jump right into it. All right, guys, so we're going to hop into the index here. And the first champion that I feel gets used quite often and is quite strong in the late game, not necessarily super end game anymore, but in the late game still widely used. It's going to be the Void Legendary Lorius. So Lorius, it brings multiple AoEs on his A3 and A2. He cannot be CC'd off without him taking a turn. Basically, he's basically unCCable unless he gets locked out. He also brings this unkillable debuff, so he cannot be killed on the first hit unless you somehow block his passive or place a block buff on him. And so he's a huge menace, especially in arena. He brings some wave clearing abilities as well with his AoE. He's a great campaign farmer, dungeon farmer, wave clearer, minotaur farmer, for example. Even live arena, he can be a huge threat. But I want to give you guys a budget alternative to this, and basically just a slightly dumbed down version of this Void Legendary Champion. And it's actually, obviously one of our old favorites. It's going to be the Void Epic Skullcrusher. Skullcrusher brings a very similar passive that places the unkillable buff on herself, so she cannot be killed that easily. She has a built-in bit of survivability. She also brings 2 AoEs with her, and she also brings a weaken too. She basically is very similar to Lorius in many ways, and on top of that, she actually brings you a speed aura in arena. So if you want to use her in arena, she's actually potentially even better than Lorius. But as an epic, she's still one of the best epics in terms of damage dealing in the game. And like obviously she's an old guard, old goat. But if you see a Lorius and you're interested in seeing how powerful Lorius is, definitely build out a Skullcrusher. Skullcrusher is going to be doing a lot of work for you in a lot of areas, similar areas to a champion like Lorius. And I think is a very obvious substitute for a champion like Lorius in this game. All right, so moving on out, we got the Orcs faction. So Warlord would be the premium option for this champion, this substitute slot. So Warlord, how can we replace Warlord? Warlord seems almost irreplaceable with his AoE lockout ability, turn meter depletion, also brings some recovery with his block debuff, heal, and shield. What champion in a budget form can actually replace Warlord? Warlord's obviously very strong, not just in arena, he's also very strong in like wave-based content where you can just lock out entire waves, neutralize them. What can replace a Warlord that's a budget option? Well, we're going to head over to the Skinwalkers, and we have a Void Epic Basher here. He's not as good as Warlord, but he does bring the 3-turn lockout for 2 turns. Not a full lockout like Warlord, but for 2 turns. We have Basher here as an epic, obviously easier to get, obviously easier to book compared to Warlord, who's a Void Legendary, and usually for 2 turns is enough to kill your opponent. If you make Basher fast enough, you can maybe cycle back to this fast enough so that you have a chance to come back to his lockout again. But Basher has been a substitute for lockout champions for a really long time. And you know what? I still see him being used to this day in some arena applications just as a lockout option for some teams. So him to replace a Warlord or a Yumiko as your lockout option on your arena speed team, for example, is definitely viable. Obviously, he's not going to be as good as somebody like Warlord just because it's not a full full depletion. It's only a 2-turn depletion. He does bring another multi-hit A3 here, and then his A1 has a bit of a weaken. He's not particularly strong with his other abilities, but this ability is incredibly strong, obviously, for an epic. So definitely worth considering if you're looking for a lockout champion, especially if you don't have any of those super ultra premium options like Yumiko or Warlord. All right, coming up next, we have Sacred Order. So let's say you will see a cardio in action. You're like, oh my goodness, this champion is a god. And he literally looks like a god. He is one of my favorite champions aesthetically. I mean, I think for most people aesthetically, he's one of their favorites. I remember when I first saw this champion, I'm like, whoa, Raid is hitting it out of the ballpark with this design. Obviously, one of the first champions with wings in Raid, I think. And then this lightning spear shield, the detail on the shield, he just looks awesome, right? But if you guys see this guy in action, you know what he can bring. He's super annoying. He brings the revive on death, cleanse, and then the block debuff, and then it actually is a protected revive on death, which is even more annoying on a 3-turn cooldown. So what champion can you reasonably use to replace a champion as godly as Cardio? Well, coming out of here, we're going to go into the Barbarian faction, and we have an old goat here. Sky Touch Shaman, Avoid Epic, actually has a very similar move to Cardio, and if you're looking for the same kind of utility as Cardio for that move, here she is. She has a 4-turn cooldown, so not a 3-turn, so not as good as Cardio. Has a remove all debuffs, so it's a cleanse on your whole team, and then the block debuff, and then the revive on death. But it's not protected. So it's a watered down version of Cardio's move on a 4-turn cooldown. But she's a Void Epic. She's not going to be as difficult to get as Cardio. She's not going to be a legendary to book. And you might even only need to use this once. For example, in Arena, she's not as good as Cardio overall, but she can work as a substitute if you just need this kind of ability. A 3-turn revive on death, 3-turn cleanse with the block debuff, or 4-turn or whatever. But she can work in a pinch to replace Cardio if you need her to. Obviously, just with this kind of ability, Cardio brings a lot more to your team than Sky Touch Shaman, but she's definitely worth considering as a worthy substitute for somebody like Cardio just for this role. All right, moving on next, back to the Orcs. We got Kreela here. So Kreela is actually one of the original ally attack champions. So here we have her A2. She places a stun, and then she has a percentage chance to team up with 3 allies and attack a random enemy. So she's one of the legendaries that does not bring a full team ally attack. So she's going to team up with 3 random allies to attack a random enemy. So obviously not going to be very good against like non-boss applications, but there is an epic that actually replaces her for ally attack, and he's actually a really good option. And we have another epic. We have where is he? Farken the Fat. So Farken the Fat as a ally attack champion is comparable to Kreela. If you guys are looking for an ally attack champion, he's one of the best in the business as a budget option. He has this ability where they got a increased crit rate, increased crit damage on a 4-turn cooldown, which is basically the standard ally attack cooldown duration. And he will team up, well, he doesn't team up, but 3 champions, 3 turns for his buffs, and then his rest of his team will attack into the enemy. He won't attack, so it won't be a full team attack, but in some ways, this is kind of better because Kreela is random and Farken is actually, you know exactly what's going in. So he's not going in, but the rest of your team is. And him comparable to some legendaries is actually really good. He also has a bit more in his kit that makes him really good as well. HP burn, poisons, and then he has an A1 decreased defense as well. Not particularly high chance, but he does have it. You know, for an epic to bring that kind of utility as well as damage with the ally attack, he's a great option, especially if you're looking for some kind of ally attack champion for some content. For example, Hard Fire Knight. He's definitely worth a shout. He's not going to be as good as the ultra premium ally attack champions like Cardio or Makage, where they send the whole team in. He only sends the rest of his team. So he himself is not going in. So it's not as good against the Fire Knight Hard, but he's a great option because he's an epic, easy to book, easy to get. All right, the next champion on my list here is High Elves. We have the end of the Arbiter missions, the Arbiter herself. So Arbiter brings a lot to the arena, obviously as a speed booster, big speed aura here. Brings a team revive, brings the increased attack, turn meter boost, A1 weaken, and then a whirlwind to decrease duration. It's kind of useful against Hydra sometimes. But basically she's known for this move and this aura. What champion can actually fill her role until you actually get Arbiter in this game? There is a very, very competitive budget option for Arbiter. If you got him, definitely use him until you get Arbiter. And he's going to come from the Undead Hordes, and he's an epic. He's right here, Goregrab. Goregrab brings a very similar fill turn meter boost with the increased attack. It's not as good as Arbiter, it's not as powerful, but it does bring the all-important increased attack. Turn meter fill on one move. He also brings a speed aura, smaller than Arbiter, but he brings it in one package here, and he does bring a team revive similar to Arbiter as well. Base stats are not as good as Arbiter's. Arbiter's has 110 base speed, Goregrab only 97. So although Goregrab is a very good budget option in the early mid-game arena, as soon as you pick up Arbiter, she is an immediate replacement upgrade over Goregrab. But until that time comes, Goregrab is an excellent budget substitute for the almighty Arbiter. All right, up next, we're going back to the Barbarians. We are trying to substitute one of the premium counterattack champions in the game. There's not too many team counterattack champions in the game still after being, you know, obviously the game being alive for 5 years now. There's actually not too many team counterattack champions, but Valkyrie is probably one of the best still to this day. She brings a massive shield that's basically unlimited. It's based on her defense. So if you can stack her defense to the moon, her shield can be unlimited. And of course, the counterattack on your whole team. Very, very, very strong protector. She can, you know, if you build her to nuke, she can nuke as well. She brings the turn meter up and down. Really, really strong on her passive. She has a cool utility throughout the game. Stone Skin kind of killed her a little bit because the turn meter stuff doesn't go through the Stone Skin. So that kind of killed her usability a bit in Arena, but she's still a very good carry, dungeon carry, clan boss carry, many different areas. Obviously, hard Fire Knight, she's actually very useful as well. You look at this base defense, almost 1600 base defense. You know she means business. How can we replace a champion like Valkyrie with such an impressive kit? So we're going to hop into the Ogren tribes, and this is our budget option here, Skullcrusher. Skullcrusher, although not as good as Valkyrie, does bring protection for himself, unkillable protection, as well as a team protection with the ally protection and counterattack. In some situations, this is almost comparable to Valkyrie's shield and counterattack ability. The shield usually will be better because it will last longer, usually, and then you can scale it up. And then the ally protection on Skullcrusher obviously is good, but the unkillable will eventually wear off, and Skullcrusher will be low HP, causing him to die almost immediately unless he has a way to recover. The rest of his kit also is not as good. Heal reduction is like situationally okay if you find the right spot for it, but he's basically just here for this move. And his application is not as universal as Valkyrie. You see Skullcrusher in clan boss teams similar to Valkyrie, but you won't see Skullcrusher in arena really, or too many Fire Knight hard teams, but Skullcrusher does work in Fire Knight hard team. So if you're looking for a team counterattack, Skullcrusher is a acceptable substitute for somebody as strong as Valkyrie, but obviously Valkyrie is a upgraded version of this ability, an upgraded, very strong team counterattack champion. But Skullcrusher does work and does bring a ton of damage for applications like Clan Boss, for example. All right, coming up next, we are going to the Undead Hordes again, and we are looking at Super Sifi here. Sifi, one of the best Void Legendaries in the game. Still to this day, super sought after. A lot of people chasing her for many years, unable to get her. I was stupidly lucky to get her one random day way back when. So Sifi is super powerful. She has the irresistible sleep on her A1, just an incredible A1, especially in the arena for control. Turn meter boosting, speed boosting, block debuffs on her A2, 4-turn cooldown, and then a single turret revive. Perfect for Rotos with the 55% HP. Full turn meter, big buffs. Rotos ready to slam after getting picked up. So Sifi, very, very good. A little bit of a healing here, and then obviously the Rotos passive makes him immune to stuff. 80 resistance all battle, incredibly good resistance aura. Great base stats, great base speed for Sifi as well. One of the best champions in the game. Like I said, how do we replace this champion? And in what application can we ever replace a champion like this? So my suggestion is the budget option to replace Sifi actually comes from the Dwarf faction, and it's going to be Cornelia. Cornelia actually can replace Sifi in the Sand Devil team, where Sifi places the sleep on the Sand Devil. Cornelia can do the same sleep, although it's not as strong because Cornelia is an epic and Cornelia can be resisted on her sleep. But Cornelia, I've shown, can do it as a level 40 with basically very minimal books. She needs this ability book 3 times and then she can place her sleep. Obviously, any sleep champion that can fulfill this role can replace Sifi in this one particular role. But there's not many champions that I can think of that are a budget option that can replace Sifi as a total package. So in this case, Cornelia can be a budget option for this particular role in that particular team, just for the sleep application. But Sifi is a very hard champion to replace. Let me know in the comments below if you guys have an idea or champion in mind that is considered a budget champion that can maybe give Sifi a run for her money. All right, so up next, the champion I want to talk about comes from the Demon Spawn. So we are looking at Prince Kymar here. Prince Kymar, super special champion still. Big aura in the speed category for the arena. Brings AoE sleep and strip, AoE poisons, and then this very special move, Seal of Time, 6-turn cooldown, resets the cooldown of all ally skills. It's a full reset, which is incredibly unique in this game. Not too many champions can full reset your skills. Prince Kymar is one of them. Makes him one of the most versatile and powerful champions in this game. What champion can even come close to replacing this champion? Well, the only budget option that we have that kind of comes close would come from the Night Revenant, and it's actually a rare, and it's going to be the Void Rare Renegade. Renegade is one of those rares that always finds their place in some budget teams. She doesn't bring the full turn she doesn't bring the full turns back from your skills, so she only can reduce the cooldown by 2 turns. So not a full reset like Kymar, but only 2 turns. Renegade is only a rare, so it makes her a lot more accessible than a champion like Prince Kymar. And in some cases, Renegade can be used in replacement of Prince Kymar in some teams. Depending on what skill needs to be reset, Renegade can fill that role in the same way that Kymar could. But of course, other champions can as well. Perhaps if they have a 2-turn cooldown reduction, but none will be as budget as a Void Rare in this case. So gotta give a shout out to Renegade here for being one of the most budget skill cooldown champions in the game. Definitely worth checking out, keeping a copy of, just in case you guys will need her down the line. All right, up next we have Ogryn Tribe. So we're gonna take a look at Grazul here. So is there a champion that can replace a part of Grazul? He's an incredibly good champion. He actually deals quite a bit of damage. He has a couple AoEs here as well. Great team support champion, lots of healing and protection. But the ability I want to take a look at here is his passive ability. Whenever this champion is attacked, heal all allies except this champion by 70% of the damage received. So it's a passive effect, is always active. It's a great team survival passive. There is actually a budget option to take care of that passive, and it's going to come from the Undead Hordes, and it's going to be the Spirit Epic Vogoth. We know Vogoth is an incredible epic champion. He's a great carry in many areas in the game. For example, Clan Boss, he basically can completely make lifesteal gear, as a non-requirement for clan boss teams, for example. He brings the big heal from his passive. Whenever he gets hit, he heals champions by 50% of the damage received. He also brings the second passive here, Leech. Whenever he is attacked, he places a Leech as well. So he brings a lot of healing to your team. Great support champion, similar to Grazul. Obviously not damage based or damage focused like Grazul, but he does bring the little bit of CC similar to Grazul with the provoke, and tons of protection and healing with his passive as well. And obviously placing the Leech is very, very good as well. So Voga, definitely a worthy substitute just as a team protector, similar to how Grazul is, but obviously not as good because Grazul also brings a lot of damage as well. All right, guys, lastly, and the last champion I want to bring up here is the Void Legendary. Where am I? Wrong thing. Void Legendary. Reho Bone Spear. Reho Bone Spear is a Void Legendary from the Shadowkin faction. She brings basically all the debuffs under the sun in one single move on a 3-turn cooldown. Great against clan boss, great against bosses in general. Also brings a 3-turn cleanse with the big heal and a block debuff. Huge ability as well. Cool passive as well that transfers debuffs when she gets debuffed with them for the first time. What can replace a champion like this? There's no other champion that brings these exact debuffs on one skill. However, in some teams where Bone Spear is used, she can be replaced by some champions. And the most budget of those champions come from the Sylvan Watchers. And it's going to be Ruel. Ruel does bring 3 debuffs similar to Reho Bone Spear on one move. The most important of which is decrease defense and weaken on one ability. So she is an epic, obviously, much easier to get than Void Legendary, easier to book. She has incredible base speed, 112 base speed, so easier to build as well. Still requires accuracy. Her kit's actually very decent and solid, so she's a solid champion overall, so you don't mind building her out. And you can replace Reho Bone Spear with Ruel in teams like Sand Devil teams that require Reho Bone Spear. Obviously, you're going to have to compensate a little bit for the decreased speed debuff perhaps, or obviously add a bit more debuffs if you need, or if you're relying on Reho's extra debuffs for extra damage against the Sand Devil. So it's not a direct replacement. It's not a perfect replacement as well. Obviously, you can use Ruel against the clan boss. Ruel is actually really good with the multi-hit package in her kit against hard Fire Knight or normal Fire Knight, for example. Decreased speed is very good against Fire Knight in general. So she does bring extra utility on top of Reho, but she's not going to be a direct replacement, but she can replace her in that specific Sand Devil application. So just something to consider when you guys look over Ruel's kit. She's actually very, very solid, very, very good champion, and definitely worthy to be on this list of being a top substitute champion. All right, folks, so that's going to be it for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my top 10 substitute champions for popular champions actually in this game. I know they're not direct substitutes, so you guys got to take the advice a little bit with your own knowledge, and you apply it however you guys can. But I do feel like some of those champions are pretty close comparisons. Definitely let me know in the comments below what you guys think. If you guys have any cool comparisons or cool substitutes, budget substitutes ideally, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear it. It's good to get some ideas and some discussions around this stuff because, you know, I'm just one brain, and it's kind of cool to have like 1,000 brains thinking about the same thing, and then we can come up with some cool ideas. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.